Yeah, so I think most of us in this room were affected by conflict and violence. And, um, and another aspect is that it seems to me, you can correct me, that the place we were born to, it was important for our affiliation group to create a very strong sense of identity, of belonging to a specific enterprise. Not like citizens of the world or liberals, or it doesn't matter, but like a national, cultural, linguistic identity that we need to buy into. So I'm Jonathan. I was born Israeli. I was born in a kibbutz. And for me, I think it meant that in order for me to feel natural and comfortable with my group, with my peers, with my affiliation group, I needed to believe the narratives that I was fed. So if it's the Israeli identity, it means that we are living in our promised land, that we are living in our legitimate homeland, and that we want to do it in peace, but that we are forced to defend ourselves from this complete evil, the Palestinians, who want to take it away from us. And in the kibbutz, for example, it was this Zionist, machoist society, like one hand driving a tractor, the other hand reading a philosophy book, and a very deep connection to the land and a sense of mission, that life is not just going through the day, but that there is a mission to life. For me, I wasn't that privileged to be comfortable with those narratives because of my mother. She also immigrated to Israel in 74 with a Zionist youth movement, Habonim, with a mission to reestablish a kibbutz. She did that in Kibbutz Gezer, it's near Ramle. That was before we moved, when I was 2 years old, to Be'eri, which was the kibbutz I grew up in the south, in the Gaza envelope. But she came from a different worldview. She came from Canada with very strong ideas of equality and values, of equality, of social justice, of the ability to change and the responsibility to shape your reality around you for the better. And she was involved since she came in issues of gender equality. She was the first, or one of the first female secretaries of a kibbutz in the whole kibbutz movement in its history. She was the first ever construction manager in a kibbutz, but also in issues of shared society between Jews and Arabs in Israel and cross-border work between Israelis and Palestinians. So from a very early age, I started meeting Palestinians not as others, like these complete others and scary people, or not just as service providers, but as colleagues and friends. I myself visited Gaza before the second Intifada broke. You know the terms Intifada, first, second. So the second Intifada broke in 2000. I managed to visit there before. And I remember it was a wonderful day. There were a few visits like that. And on the one hand, it felt very natural because I visited friends of my mother. But in the same time, I knew that it's unusual, that none of my peers will get this opportunity or even be interested in that experience. So I grew up, instead of buying into the general Zionist narrative, I grew up thinking that my path would be political activism and human rights. I thought from an early age about power dynamics, about the occupation. When I was 18 years old, as opposed to all of my friends, I refused to join the army. And I moved from the kibbutz to Jerusalem and started volunteering in organizations that do what is called protective presence. You heard about that? And I remember standing in Sheikh Jarrah, it's a neighborhood in East Jerusalem. Every Friday we would have a demonstration there, and thinking, this is not impactful enough. I'm going to study law to become a human rights lawyer, or to work in policy shaping. So I did that. And I started my BA in Haifa University, which is a great Russian-speaking city. And then something kind of shifted. I grew up in the 90s. So the component of we are a peace-seeking people was very strong still in Israel. And the movement, the peace movement, was also very vibrant. And the big thing that captured everyone's imagination during the 90s, I was still a kid, but I absorbed all that energy, was the Oslo Accords. You know about the Oslo process? Everybody is very informed here.
Did our homework.
What?
We did our homework.
Yeah. So this energy of change, of the prospect of ending the conflict, was very present. But as time passed, after the second Intifada broke, and after the army left Gaza in 2005 and Hamas took power there, it seemed like we stopped hoping for peace and believing that we are forced to bear arms, and started believing that this is our destiny, that this is our fate. We don't need to end the conflict, we need to manage the conflict, because it's something static that will stay with us. The occupation is a fact, the conflict is our fate, and that's the way we have to live here. And I started to feel like I have no ability to for impact. And I started to feel powerless. And in 2014, I was still in my BA. Two things happened. One was that my first child was born, and the second was a protective edge. Protective edge was the worst violent clash we had with the Palestinians up until October 7th. And it seemed like everybody is just accepting it. And I started to feel like I need to put my resources into something that I can nourish, like my family, instead of something that I have no power over. And I went into what I call my political coma. Disengaging from activism, from volunteering, from seeking partnerships with Palestinians, and I started holding on to this fantasy that I, as an Israeli, can lead a normal life, my small bourgeois life, disregarding the occupation and the conflict. And to some extent, it was the truth. I could have. And I think most of the Israelis are holding on to this fantasy. So it worked for me. I had two other kids. I have three kids. I quit my job as a lawyer. I studied a master's in social work. And I woke up every day, went to work as a social worker. I said bourgeois before, but social workers don't make any money in Israel. Although in Haifa it was enough. Went back home, raised my kids, and it was fine. All of this time, I had this creeping, like, alienating feeling that I think certain thoughts about my reality, but I'm totally disassociated from it. I live a different life than what I think is worthy. But it worked for about 9 years, up until October 7th. That day I woke up in my apartment in Tel Aviv. I was supposed to be with my family in Be'eri because it was a holiday. And we used to spend all our holidays there, but we just didn't go. Just, Friday morning we decided, I think my mother-in-law pissed off my partner. She's also from Be'eri, my partner, and we didn't go. So Saturday we woke up in our apartment in Tel Aviv, and to the sound of sirens. You probably remember that also. And at first I didn't pay it any attention. I tried to continue sleeping because I knew I was accustomed to sirens and rockets from the kibbutz. And it started when I was, the rocket started when I was a young teenager. And I think when things like that start when you're a teenager, you feel omnipotent, right, as a teenager. So I kept that feeling of, I don't care about missiles. So I thought that, okay, it's another round of violence. We're used to it. It will blow over. But it didn't. And then I realized at a certain point that this is very unusual, and I got on the phone with my mother, and I just accompanied her for a few hours in the beginning, both of us kept pretty cool, laughing. We thought, okay, this is scary, but it will be over in a minute, in another minute, okay, another minute, but it wasn't. And then we had a realization. We had I heard very loud gunshots outside of our window through the phone, and we decided in a conscious decision to say goodbye. And I'm pretty grateful for that moment because most of my friends didn't get that moment. We said goodbye, and then through text, she told me that they were inside the house. So that experience of accompanying my mother to her death, to her violent death, it was a new type of helplessness. But this time, out of that helplessness, I felt immediately a very strong sense of responsibility. That this is a situation that could have been and should have been prevented, and that it was possible to prevent it. And I had this sharp realization that I've been using as a mantra since. That it's not a question of, that peace is not a question of plausibility, it's a question of will. That it's not that we don't want peace because it's complicated. It is complicated because we don't want it. And that if I shied away from responsibility 10 years ago, and in that I contributed to the process of dehumanization, to the normalization of violence, this time I felt I had to contribute whatever I can to create an alternative reality for that. So again, I quit my job as a social worker. I remember a few days after October 7th, walking in the street and meeting a patient of mine. I worked in the department for people who suffer from homelessness and addiction in Neve Sha'anan. And we met and we talked for a bit, and I thought to myself, I can't do anything for him because we're both in this suffering mode. But that's just anecdote. But I quit my job as a social worker and I became dedicated to the field of reconciliation and peace building, and the demand to end the carnage in Gaza and the occupation and the conflict in general. I've been doing that in a few, I lost the word for it, a few fields. One is what is called discourse shaping. So talking to audiences, writing op-eds in the traditional media, in social media, and reclaiming the notions, the concepts of peace and reconciliation and political imagination and change, and making them a reality again. The other is civil society. So I immediately joined the Parent Circle Families Forum, which is, if you've done your homework, you know about it. It's a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization of bereaved families We have about 800 families in our community. Our staff is joint and all of our activities. So we do a lot of these kinds of sessions, but together with a Palestinian partner. Today, this afternoon, I did a session with Bassam Maramin. He lost his daughter, Abir, because she was 10 years old and the soldiers shot her in the head on their way to school. So we do these kinds of sessions together. We try to do them in schools. We used to do them in schools, but now we are banned because the Israeli Ministry of Education deems us a dangerous organization. And they are right. In the logic, when you are a society that feel the need to maintain a conflict, then people who talk to your kids about reconciliation, about equality, about forgiveness, those are dangerous concepts. But it says something very strong about the society we live in. It says that our establishments want to maintain this situation. Another thing we do is the joint memorial ceremony. Every year in Israel there's a national memorial for soldiers, for Israeli soldiers and victims of the conflict. So the Parent Circle Families Forum, together with an organization called Combatants for Peace, do a joint ceremony for people who were lost to the conflict on both sides. And in that kind of universalize suffering and victimhood and the ability to heal together. So at first we show that we can cry together, and if we can do that, we can also laugh together and build things together. We have a summer camp for youth, for teenagers, from bereaved families, and every year they go. Also now, in the past 2 years, it happened. And all sorts of projects and initiatives, and you can ask questions about it as well. I'm also a part of the It's Time Coalition. If anybody here is in the therapeutic field, then I'm organizing Yom Iyun. I don't know the word for it in English. It's a day of learning together for therapists, for people in the welfare system, and to kind of question how does our ethical code of our profession, how can we still hold it in this reality? And do we have a role in our profession, in our society? So it's March 26th, you're welcome. And a lot of initiatives and organizations to build a language and also an electoral power to demand from bottom up, to demand that our leaders see this as their mission, to serve the people of their country by offering them something else other than death and violence. Another field is advocacy. I go around, I didn't get to Russia, but I go around European capitals and the US and talk in parliaments and in foreign offices, presidents, to pressure them, to pressure us, because they have a crucial role in enabling and sponsoring the status quo, and also in solving it. This is not happening on its own. A conflict may start between two sides, but it is always either enabled or resolved with the intervention of third parties. So I try to hold them accountable, and things do happen. There's remember when the ceasefire, the Trump ceasefire, the last one was announced, my son, 9 years old, he told me, "It's good that it's happening, but you know that you had nothing to do with it." And I said, "Maybe, but why do you say it? Why do you say that?" And he said, "Because you didn't talk directly to Trump." I said, "Yeah, but I talked to ambassadors, I talked to foreign ministers." He said, "Do they pass it along to Trump?" I said, "Sometimes." He said, "Okay, so maybe you had something." No, but I think that, not me personally, but it's a movement of voices that demand something, that ask for something, that legitimize intervention, that ask for it. The fourth thing is kind of a legacy for my mother. We established the Vivian Silver Impact Award. So every year we grant an award for 2 women, one Jewish and one Palestinian, that work in the fields of cross-border work, shared society, and promotion of women to leadership positions. So that's my spiel. And I hope that we have time and that you feel up to having a discussion. It can be questions, it can be statements, whatever.
I have 3 questions. 2 of them are about your story, so I'll start with those, and then the third we can deal with afterwards, maybe. There are 2 instances in your life where I wonder what your relationship with your mother was, or what your mom thought about your decisions. First was not going to the army, her coming from a Zionist background. That probably is not an obvious decision. And on the other hand, so I wonder what she thought about that. And the other is you going into the coma, and again, her watching you for 10 years not really aligning with your values. So how did that relationship with her develop in those periods of your life?
Yeah. Regarding the first question, the way I see it, when she came in 1974, there wasn't for her such a strong gap between thinking of herself as a Zionist and believing in values of equality and justice and things like that. And gradually, it became clear to her that, I mean, also by being more informed about our history, that although we can say that Zionism was a liberation movement, it started as a displacement project here in this context of this land. It was always a displacement project. And this is something that we don't want to acknowledge. But when we partner with Palestinians and when we learn their history and their narratives, so it becomes more and more clear. It doesn't mean that we don't have a right to be here, that we can or should leave all the Jews from this land, but it means to be accountable for it. And in that sense, for me not to join the army was just like an improvement of her, belief system. She couldn't do that leap, and it was hard for her in the beginning because it was radical, even for her. But it didn't take her long to get on board with it and to understand that I'm walking the walk and not just talking the talk. So she was, I felt that after a short while she was proud of it. But in the same time, she was also proud of my brother, a year and a half older than me, that did join the army. And that relates to the second question, that she was a person that didn't really, it was a lot less important for her what we do, as long as we feel meaning, and that we feel that we are fulfilling ourselves in some kind of purpose. So I could pretty easily mask my disinvolvement in political work because I was a social worker. And that is a meaningful line of work. But we would, I would taunt her because, when you are not doing something that you think should be done, then you kind of belittle it, right? This mechanism that it's not, you're not doing anything important. I would tell her, you're not impactful. In 2014, she was like a founding member of Women Wage Peace. So I would laugh at her, you and your elderly youth movement, right? It's like you're going to these activities with your accents and white hair, and it's fun for you, but it's not impactful. And she would tell me, continue laughing at me from your couch. I'm doing whatever can be done, whatever I think can be done, and for her that was something that kept her going, and I was envious. I didn't tell her that, but I was envy of her. I felt envy because I think it's more admirable to do something only because it's right and not because it's impactful. And today I feel it very strongly that I do a lot of things that feel fruitless, but they have purpose. And this time, it's enough for me to continue. You know, and I still laugh at myself. I write an article, and it's great. And I send it in, and it's published, and I say to myself, another article like this, and we'll have peace. And it's a joke, because it's not true, but it has purpose. It's the right thing to do in my mind, and that's enough for me to continue. And she had that all along, all during her life. And it meant that sometimes she succeeded, like in very important things. Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel that Palestinians feel Hamas is a legit power and the only legit power at the moment?
First of all, I don't agree with that claim. I don't see the Palestinians as a monolith. So the mirror image for that would be like all Israelis think that Ben Gvir and Smotrich are legitimate leaders, and it's not true. I met through these years countless, like you could probably count them, but it's a lot of Palestinians. And I never heard anybody who likes Hamas. And it doesn't mean that we think the same. Like sometimes I can meet a Palestinian that they're on the border of denying 7th of October, but they still don't support Hamas. So there are people who support Hamas. And there are people in Israel who support Ben Gvir and Smotrich. And in my mind, they are partners. And I don't think that we need to judge on both sides the people who support it. I feel that we need to make an effort to create a setting where these kinds of leaders don't gain political power and societal power. Because there will always be, in any society, in any group of people, in any family, there will be a more aggressive person. And there will always be in societies fundamentalists. But the question is not do they exist or not. The question is how much power they receive. And I think that in our reality, in our context, we are feeding into it. So now breaking away from symmetry, I think we have we have a lot more responsibility for this situation, that Palestinians have no prospect of a future, and that the only thing that ever worked politically for them, not the only thing, but for decades, the only thing that worked politically for them was violence. Because after the first Intifada, which was predominantly non-violent, they got Oslo. That was great. But since then, we have dried out the PA, delegitimized them, calling them diplomatic terrorists, giving them nothing to show for to their people. We take their taxes, we deepen the occupation and the building of the settlements, And although they continue to be in military cooperation with us, we drag them through the mud internationally and here. Who do we speak to? We speak to Hamas. We give them money, we empower them before October 7th, and since we speak with them in the language of violence. So you can say, what do you mean we speak to them? We kill them, but that's a language. And we don't use any language with the PA. So this is what we get in terms of the people who support leadership and the leadership itself. So I think that this is something that is very dynamic. It can change very quickly if we decide to put our resources in in different outlets. Imagine that we, in South Africa, they decided at some point to go to the prison and talk to Mandela and see what will happen if they release him, if he will cooperate in a peace process. They saw that he will, they released him. Imagine that we would go to Marwan Barghouti, and instead of starving him and humiliating him, see if we release him, not if Hamas demands it in their exchange. If Israel releases him, does he have the potential to gain political power and start a process with us? Immediately, Hamas loses power in this context. So this always goes back to show me, it validates all the time that it's not that we don't know how to do it, it's that we don't want to do it. Because we don't want to end the conflict with the Palestinians.
I have a question that I want to ask most of the Israeli liberal organizations. How safe do you feel right now in the society, and from the government point of view? Like, how do you expect some government violence, and are you expecting that it's going to be more dangerous? And if yes, are you prepared for that? Do you think about these things?
We are not there yet. For example, I personally don't think about it when I walk in the streets, because I didn't get on anybody's radar. I speak mostly in English abroad, but people have suffered from it. And it does happen on the person-to-person level of experiencing violence for your political views. And that's, I'm talking about Jews. Palestinians feel it all the time. We had speakers, for example, in this seminar that we are having on the 26th, we had a Palestinian Israeli speaker, and when her place of work saw the flyer, they forced her not to do it. So Palestinians have been incarcerated and silenced all the time. But for Jews, it's different. We're not there yet. You have to do a lot in order to be threatened. in terms of the establishment, so the space is diminishing all the time. As I said, we as an organization are banned from schools. There is a law that they're trying to pass to tax NGOs, an 80% tax on money coming in, on foreign money. That will kill NGOs. They have a law to that if The Hague quotes your report, you did a report or an article or something, and The Hague quotes it, you can go to prison. Not if you sent it, but if you get quoted. So this is the direction we are going to. You know it a lot better than me, I think, from what I heard about Russia. We are not there yet, but we will get there. This election, it feels like the last elections in Israel in terms of if this coalition will prevail, things will deteriorate a lot more and quicker. But we'll see. I am afraid of it, but I'm not preparing for it.
That was exactly my question, because I wanted to open up the topic of elections. Yeah, and how you feel about that. You already answered on this question. I also feel the frustration, especially like in Russian-speaking community, about the elections, because I see two sides. Or people just genuinely don't know for whom to vote, or also like feel so much like hopeless. I don't know how to even explain this. I don't know, it's not going to work, or there is nobody to vote, or it's not clear for whom to vote. I think that we need, I don't know, some inspiration or something. So I don't know if you want or know what to share, and how actually, I'm not asking for whom you're going to vote. That's not my question. But my question is how to understand, I don't know, how to help us.
Yeah. Yeah, so here they do, it's true, they do count here, at least until now. And I think now it's pretty clear in my mind that it's not an election for like the best candidate that will serve the citizenry, right? Like he will give us, he will put more money into infrastructure, so it's good to vote for him, or he's in favor of welfare. It's a vote for what kind of state this will be. It will either be theocracy, like very deep religious structures, and I'm not talking about the ultra-Orthodox. I'm talking about the settlers, the national Orthodox. So a theocracy that will push for control over the whole, from the river to the sea. And it won't mean only suffering for Palestinians, it will also mean suffering for any person that does not conform to rigid Judaism. There won't be any money for the general education system, because it won't, because we will be considered dangerous. It's happening already, as we see that people who don't align with the coalition agenda, they are not just political rivals. They are dangerous. They are traitors. This is the discourse. So this is one type of state that will be. Another type of state, which, you can do it, but I don't like it, is to go back to October 6th, to go back to before the judicial reform, this kind of democracy for Jews only. So this is like the center. This is Yair Lapid, Gantz, Bennett, and Gallant, not Gallant, Eisenkot. So we're mapping it, right? There's the Likud, Bibi, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and the ultra-Orthodox. This is the coalition now, that if they continue, I think it will be a disaster. There is the so-called center that they won't change a lot for the Palestinians and for our ability to be a progressive state. They will go back to be like this normal state. And there is the left. You have Yair Golan, the Democrats, and the Zionist left, it's called. I also don't believe in that term, but it's a lot better, I think, than the center and the right. And you have the Arab parties, Hadash, Balad, Ram, Tal, and they are supposed to run together this time. There is another initiative that I don't know if it will come to fruition, of the Purple Party, which is, we are in their house now. I signed the ad that started their campaign, and we'll see. We'll see if they run till the end. That's a completely Jewish Palestinian party that is focused on peace and ending the conflict and reconciliation, but they are also very much based in welfare ways of thinking. So if they run, and I think that they can pass, I would vote for them. If not, I will vote for the Arab parties. You didn't ask, but I don't mind sharing. Because I can't bring myself to vote for a party that uses Zionism as an identity part of their political agenda. It doesn't mean I think that the Democrats are an enemy. I really appreciate Gilad Kariv and Naama Lazimi, and I have an ounce of appreciation to him. Not really, but I think he can be an interesting leader because he listens to other voices. So if you still want to feel Israeli and a part of the Zionist collective, I think you should vote for the Democrats. Or come and vote for either the Purple Party or the Arab coalition.
I think you're the first person who answered on my question, like with the parties that you're going to vote and, so honest. Interesting, thank you. Any questions?
First of all, if anybody wants to know anything about the Democrats, you can ask me in Russian. It's interesting. I don't care about the Zionist part. I just need a different future for us all.
Yeah.
The question that I had, it's based on something that you said in one of the podcasts maybe at some point, and I've been using it a lot, especially when talking to other people, international colleagues, for instance. At some point you said that the world is importing the conflict from us rather than exporting solutions to us, and that's why kind of internationally we're so stuck. And since you've been doing so much international work, I wonder if you've developed kind of a roadmap beyond talking to the officials and in the kind of behind the closed doors with presidents. How do we move forward with the masses? Kind of how do we change? How do we make sure that they support the kind of peaceful way forward rather than tearing us apart even further?
Yeah, I'm always afraid of the questions that say, do you have a roadmap? Do you have like a concrete thing? I'm an intellectual, I don't... I can tell you things that I've done. For example, I remember in December 23, I went to a memorial in Winnipeg, my mother's hometown. And I met friends of hers from Toronto. And they said, we want to do another memorial like this in Toronto. And I said, no. I don't want you to do another memorial. I want you to do a shared action between Jews, diaspora Jews and diaspora Palestinians, Jews and Muslims in Toronto, and do it in her honor. And it took a long time. It wasn't immediate. And every time she would say, listen, we succeeded in this, but I said, no. You have to have Muslims in your steering committee. You have to do it together. And in the end, it succeeded. It happened. And we had in June of, I guess it was 25, we had an event in Toronto which was completely joint. And we were on stage together, Jews and Muslims, Palestinians, and it sprouted initiatives in the healthcare community. They did like dialogue rooms in a hospital with a methodology of a discussion there, and there was a podcast that started like a joint hosting of Jewish and Palestinian. So this is something that I think has to be duplicated if you're Jewish and you want a better future for the region. You have to find a Palestinian or a Muslim to work together, and that the political activism there's importance for uninational and for binational. But there, I think it has to be a joint action. And it works, when it works. It doesn't always work, but when it works, it's amazing. So the question was, how many Israelis believe or want peace? Yeah, that's a... ready to accept it or believe it. I think that the percentage of people who truly, fundamentally don't want to live in safety, prosperity, well-being, because that's what peace means. So the percentage of people who don't want that, who are not ready to accept that, is very, very, very small. It exists, but it's small. So most of the Israelis, if they would have been offered in a constructive manner a framework where they would enjoy safety, well-being, prosperity, legitimacy, the feeling of legitimacy in their land, and they would be told, you get that, you are promised that, this is what you will get, but it includes the Palestinians, they will accept it. But they are not offered that. Nobody is offering that to them. Because the paradigm is binary. It's either we fortify ourselves here, and maybe we will get safety, but we won't. Or they will be able to do it, right? It's a zero-sum game. So no. So most of the Israelis say no, we don't want that. But it's a matter of how you ask the question and what are you offering. So when we have a leadership that can offer us to live for mutuality instead of die and kill for exclusivity, I believe that most Israelis will choose mutuality. And it can be in all sorts of different ways. It can be two states, like hermetic two states. It can be a confederation. It can also be, in theory, one state. But we don't imagine, like we try to imagine the future with the realities of today. And that's kind of an oxymoron, right? It's the future. It will look different. And it will look different because we would build it differently in order to create a future where we are not in existential threat all the time, because we share power, because we transformed from two opposite violent sides fighting for a land to a problem-solving group that try to solve a mutual problem of ours, which is how can two peoples share one land? It's not our problem is not the Palestinians. The Palestinians' problem is not Israelis or Jews. It's this, we both have this mutual problem of how to live together on the same land. Because we will. We will live and die on the same land. Millions of us will not relocate. It won't happen. It's either we annihilate one another or we live together. And it's complicated. It's a problem. right? It's a problem for two societies, two people, two cultures, two languages, two opposing national projects to share one land. But it's a mutual problem, and the solution for it is joint. So when we enter that room from that standpoint of equality in humanity, like we know, maybe we want different sizes of the cake, but we know that you are that you have a right for a piece. You have the same right as me for aspirations, for needs, for fears, for legitimacy, for self-determination, for peoplehood, for culture and language. When we enter that room from that standpoint, then we will take out of that room something that the general population can stand behind, and they will take it. So when you ask, do you believe that how many Israelis do you believe are ready for peace? I think the vast majority is, but they are not offered it. When they will be offered it, they will take it. And same goes to the Palestinians.
First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for for sharing of your story. And I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that I faced lots of time that Israelis, when I say that I want a peace here in Israel and Palestine, lots of people say that it's because you don't understand what is life in Israel. You didn't lose anyone in that conflict. You don't have your son in the army, and so as you don't understand the context of what is happening here. But and on the one side, I think it's our privilege as people who came here a little time ago, because we can imagine this peace. We don't have our personal trauma about it. Yeah, yes, yes, but I can tell about myself, and but also, of course, living in Israel, we are sharing something, but we, I hope, we didn't, we weren't here during the Intifada also and so on. I don't know, but but I think now we have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of words also. We heard today that we know you, and we know also a person who is totally involved in Israeli society life, and who can imagine that we will all live in peace. And I think we have to collect this, and we have to share, and also through Russian-speaking community, which is
there's so many Russian mandates to change elections.
Yes, and we need more and more pro-peace media, which will share it. But I think this meeting is very, very important to have something to share. So thank you very much. And another small part about your work with homeless people. I'm coming from a community here in Tel Aviv. We are helping also homeless people in Neve Sha'anan. And it's a Russian-speaking community, and we believe that also building a bridge, not a wall, between us and homeless, between society and poor people, is also a step for peace. So I think that also this part of your life is very, very connected with generally with peace and with imaginations that something can be changed. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a question about your mother. Like being left-wing in Israel, sometimes you feel that there's a lot of people who will tell you that you're too naive and so on. And she lived like kibbutz is liberal, but it's still like a very Zionist environment. And how her views were perceived there, like how it was for her.
She didn't always have an easy time there. I think the way I saw it is that most of the people didn't agree with her and kind of resented her, but very much appreciated her. So, and I myself, you know, I suffered like a social price for not only social, it was, they didn't take me to work also in the kibbutz after not joining the army. So it wasn't that comfortable all the time, but she had the ability and the talent to rally people. So after she joined Women Wage Peace, she like built a group in the kibbutz. She drove Palestinian patients from Gaza to Israeli hospitals before the war, and more people joined her in doing that. She was she established in the kibbutz a committee for humanitarian work and community empowerment. So they took 1% of the income of the kibbutz, which is a lot. And they had a fund that granted grants to initiatives and organizations in the South. So, and that was like, she did it in the kibbutz framework. So she had that ability, and she was attacked in the kibbutz a few times, but she was, I felt she was appreciated. And today, when I gave my talk in the afternoon, after me, 2 people from the kibbutz came to give a talk as well. They came back from Gaza, they were hostages from Be'eri, and they saw me there. Say, "Oh, hi." And they said, "If we knew that you were speaking before us, we would have come earlier." And I said, "No, it's a good thing you didn't come." And they said, "Why?" I said, "I don't think, I think it would have been hard for you to hear it. I'm what they call a radical leftist in Israel." And they said, "Oh, still." But then they told me, you know, she was so strong. She raised you right. And they don't agree with me at all, but they appreciate what she stood for. So it was interesting. It wasn't easy, but it was her home. She always, you know, she felt that it was her home.
Any other questions? Like the last one, maybe?
Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing. I just wanted to ask whether you're doing anything differently now to avoid like burning out again in your activism, and yeah.
I don't think so, but I myself am different. So, you know, I can't say for certain how long I will be able to keep doing this, and it's also, you know, it's supposed to be a mission that is contained in time, right? We I'm supposed not to be needed anymore but but it's I think you know, it's a good question. I think I should do something about it, but this time the work is different and I am different. So it works out. It worked out till now, but the work is different. You know, the urgency is different. The price if we don't engage is different. This will be our soundtrack forever and ever. But yeah, I gained something. You know, I lost my mother in body, but I kind of gained her in spirit. Like her determination, her ability to mobilize others and herself, and to be rooted in purpose and not in outcomes. So I gained that, which it's different than it used to be. Okay.